Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest installment of the Endless Celts podcast. I hope everyone who's listening is keeping well. I'm joined by my co-host John and a show regular Francis. How are you both?
Yeah, I'm good, Steve.
Good. I'm fine. Just back from a bit of football training, wrecked, but we'll get stuck into this. Now, what we've seen over the weekend, last week we covered it pretty extensively on the podcast about Postecoglous. We looked a bit into him and his history and what he's won, and we've seen over the weekend that apparently he verbally agreed to take the job, and his last day at Yokohama will be Wednesday in their cup game, I believe. I think they have a cup game left. I think he wants to take him over the line. But again, we've seen managers verbally agree to the Celtic job and end up doing a runner when they get close to it. So we'll keep cautioning this one, but it looks more or less agreed that he's going to be the next manager. I mean, all the signs, all the noises, there's much more movement than there was towards the end of the Eddie Howe deal anyway. But come to yourself, John, first. We've seen from various sources within 72 hours, which many believe would be Wednesday after his last cup game with Yokohama, he's going to be announced. And we talked about this on our last podcast in terms of, are you warming to him and people like that. I mean, you brought up very good points, and people are saying he's a cracking manager. I myself have heard people say that he's in the top 10 coaches in the world. But again, this is people who are all based in Australia and Japan. And I was thinking to myself today, especially around when Kevin Muscat got linked to the assistant manager job, how far Celtic have seen to be fallen. I mean, first of all, linked with Eddie Howe, manager of that calibre, and now we're going to the land down under. In literal terms, we're going to Australia to source the next manager. No disrespect. I mean, we did say there's positive points to him, but when you reflect again, it does point to a sobering fact that Celtic can't attract the manager that once could.
Well, I believe Celtic are still capable of attracting a decent manager. I think the issue here doesn't lie within Celtic's standing as a club and their appeal. It's the board's lack of action, and like you mentioned, it's like we put all our eggs in one basket with the whole Eddie Howe thing. It fell through. We don't know too much about Postecoglous. We've all heard good things up until this point. I'm definitely, as I said previously, I'm warming to him. But it is still unknown. It is still a bit of a gamble because we don't know how he's going to be managing teams in Scotland, the type of football that's played here, and is how he's going to cope playing in Europe. So, it does sort of seem like a bit of a rushed appointment, a bit of a panic appointment, but Celtic claim that they've been sort of keeping tabs on him for months, but I'm sure they would say that anyway, just to make it seem like they actually had a plan B, which I don't think they actually did. But as I said, and as we mentioned, you mentioned there that I know a lot of the guys have said that have come out and says that he's a quality coach and everything else are all players that have played under him internationally. But again, these are guys that have played. I mean, that Australian international team is still full of world-class players who have played in some of the top leagues in Europe under some of the best coaches. So there has to, they might just be sort of defending one of their own, but at the end of the day, everything that's been said about him is still positive. So, and I still think there's something to that.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, the Australian national team, when he was in charge of them, had the likes of Tom Rodrigues, Tim Cahill, Jackson Irvine, who plays for Hibs at the moment, and it is littered with good players. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying world class, but there is quality in their team.
Statement.
There is quality in their team. But coming to yourself, Francis, we've chatted about it amongst ourselves as a group and stuff, and people haven't really had the opportunity to say their views, especially on the podcast, since when we had certain people on last week. But how are you feeling towards the Postecoglous appointment? And are you thinking as along the lines of me is like how far have Celtic fallen? And again, I do have to come back to what I said previously. There is positive points, as John said. I mean, a lot of players, a lot of ex-coaches in Australia media are bumming this guy up to the highest, and he must have some pedigree about him. He has won things, but again, is it a bit worrying that Celtic had to go this far to attract the manager?
It is, but then that could go down to like what you touched on, you and Anthony and Ross and John touched on last week about, is it maybe ignorance from my side, just not doing a lot of research into the guy and not knowing it. But yeah, I would expect us to be able to get a bigger calibre manager. I mean, like it could be a masterstroke with the board with this guy. It could really be a good manager. Like you have said, I've heard lots of good things about him. Yeah, that's coming out of Japan and Australia. You'd sort of expect that. Some of these guys are linked to the Man City group thing. So again, are they just sort of protecting one of their own? And also, it's like not to downgrade the Japanese or Australian league. It's why has this guy been over there that long? I appreciate also had the international job, but why has he been over there that long and not had another crack at Europe? Because I know he obviously played well. We managed in, I think, for a 6-month spell in the Greek second or third division. So why is nobody else taking a punt on him? That's why I don't get in. Like the guy could be. As I say, could be a masterstroke. I've also read reports that he's a Bielsa type guy, which, I mean, if he's anything like Bielsa, I think we've got a really good manager on our hands. But for the players to react to Bielsa, because he wants players to run all day, wants them to be fit. So it's I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I wouldn't say I'm overly excited, but at the same thing, I'm open to it because it's. I slightly disagree with John saying I think Celtic had a plan B and Postecoglous maybe was the plan B. I just don't think they ever thought they needed the plan B. I think they just thought Eddie Howe was done and dusted, and I think Postecoglous has been a plan B, hence why it seems on the face of it to get done very quick. But I think it was more they didn't think they needed a plan B.
But do you not think, Francis, that this points to like a favour from the Manchester City organisation? We know the links Celtic have through Lowell. His son works in the Manchester City group. So for me, from the outside looking in, I don't think it's a plan B. What gives you that vibe? I mean, you do say that it is being done quickly, but again, at the end of the day, you can bring a mate and get a favour done ASAP. It's as simple as that sometimes.
I know, but it is as simple as that. But it's football. It's not as simple as things like that. It's not just getting a job in a shop or something like that. There has to be, but I do think it is a plan B. I'm not saying, maybe I was wrong in saying that Postecoglous was a name they'd thought of, but maybe their plan B was, let's go to the City group after that.
What about yourself, John? What are you thinking about that?
No, I mean, it wouldn't at all surprise me if it was just done through a phone a friend, and they've obviously found themselves up shit creek and left in a position where the guy that they wanted in, they thought was definitely going to come in, like I say, all their eggs were in one basket. That fell through. You were already round about the 100-day mark without a manager, and it's like your natural reaction then is to, well, at the board anyway, it would seem to panic almost. And they've obviously had a recommendation for some guys, whether that be for the City group or no, we don't know, but it wouldn't at all surprise me.
But see, looking at it as well, as you said, it could be done by phone a friend, and as Francis has said, the City group could have been the plan B. But do you think, John, it's healthy to be much aligned with the City group? Because we always say on the podcast that Celtic should be their own club. They're the worldwide institution, and as you rightly said at the start there is no downturn in their gravity in terms of worldwide status. What I was meaning by them kind of going to that market is because everyone else in Europe knows they're a second choice anyhow. And I'm sure Postecoglous is aware that he'll be second choice, but he seems like the type of guy that wants to get that crack in Europe, and he would have took anything, to be honest. But I know there was rumours about AEK Athens were after him, but that fell through because of backroom staff, and we'll get on to the backroom staff he may be taking the Celtic. But do you not think it's a bit unhealthy to be linked with this group all the time?
I mean, I don't think there's any problem having relationships within football, because it can certainly help. But it depends on the nature of it. And to what extent you're actually utilising the links that you've got. We've seen through previous players that we've brought through for Man City. Some of them work, some of them don't. It's difficult to say. As long like I say, if as long as Man City or the Man City group haven't got their hand in anybody's pockets and that, and what I mean by that is they're no making sort of any decisions for people. Like the club, Celtic should still be standing on their own 2 feet. I don't think there's any problem having relationships with other clubs, but it's to what extent is, how far do their relationships go? How deep do they go? Like you mentioned, we already know Lowell's son works with the City group, and that instantly sort of you could sort of put it down to maybe conflict interest and things like that, because you're then just sort of diving into that, and you might be making, this could well be an appointment that's no good for us, and we're doing it off the back of a recommendation. And it's a tough question to answer, Stephen, really, because like I said, it's...
Well, it is. I understand that it is. I'm just trying to get your general opinion on the City group.
I don't think there's a problem with having relationships with other clubs in football, no. But again, it really depends on the extent of their relationships and how far they go.
Yeah. What about yourself, Francis? Where do you stand on the whole City connection? I know John said we've got success from certain players like Bayada, Roberts, just to name a few. But are you happy enough with Celtic looking like not like a feeder club, but almost like they're kind of City's go-to club if they want to send players to, or Celtic are ringing in for advice? Are you comfortable with that?
No, well, I'm similar to John, like with relationships within football. I mean, it happens throughout, and that's like Celtic are a bigger club than Man City, but globally right now, Man City are blowing Celtic out the park, unfortunately. But a lot of that's money, the league they're in, and stuff. And like, I'm not a fan of Man City, the football club, and it's simply down to how they've got a lot of their recent success. But if you look at the City group and what they do to the communities and stuff, I mean, what they've done to, round about the park, the stadium, and that, the jobs they've created down in Manchester, I mean, that's a good thing. But like John, I would hope that if they are involved, it's not from a sort of a financial side where they've maybe got a financial stake in Celtic. I don't mind the sort of a feeder club type thing, because like Laura Bradburn touched on a couple weeks ago, like it works for Ajax and Borussia Dortmund. Like they're not, I don't know if feeder club's the right thing, but it's they bring players through and they move on to bigger and better things, if you like, and it's a successful model they two clubs have got, so it could work for Celtic. It could be something that works.
I suppose you say go ahead, John.
So I was just going to say, no, like Franny's point there was perfect. You see other clubs have these type of relationships through world football, not just necessarily in Europe, but you've got them. Like I said, I don't like using the term feeder club because, as it says, in terms of actual stature and history and fan base, we're a far bigger club than Man City will ever be. But they have the pulling power of playing in the Premier League and the money that comes with that, and that's what's put them in the position that they're in. And obviously the people that invested in them have invested heavily to make them as successful as they are. We unfortunately don't have that luxury, but I don't see a problem, like Franny says, in having relationships with clubs whereby you can maybe get deals on some young up-and-coming players, because like we've seen, like you mentioned, Boyata, for all accounts, up until maybe the latter end of his career at Celtic, done really well for us. And we all, I think we all as Celtic fans fell in love with Paddy Roberts as well, and we'd love to have him back. So, I mean, I think that you can have successful relationships with other clubs, definitely. But again, as long as, like I says, the City group haven't got their hand in anybody's sort of pockets or making decisions for people, and doing it through the likes of law and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Francis made a great point as well, John, as you touched upon. You've seen this model in the Bundesliga and the Austrian League between Salzburg and Leipzig. I mean, we've seen their manager move to them, and then usually it's from Leipzig to Bayern Munich. But obviously, the clubs aren't interlinked, the latter of the clubs. But I mean, it can work. And as you said, if it's on a basis where you're getting the old player, and it's not really, as you said, someone has their hand in their pocket and they're making decisions through Lowell. And one of the concerning things for a lot of supporters, Francis, is that this Postecoglous appointment seems to be a Lowell appointment, and as we all know, he is leaving his post, or he's meant to be leaving Celtic anyway at the end of this month, I think, or it's the end of next month. It's one or the other. But it's a concern. It's a concern for myself because I do not think Mackay has had one say in this whole managerial process. Maybe he's been in the same room when negotiations have took place, but again, it's one of them ones where, as people say, he's shadowing him, and I don't think that should be the way it should be laid out. I think your man Mackay should have a more of a say because he's going to be working with this guy going forward, Postecoglous I'm referring to. Is that not a concern for yourself, Francis, that if Lowell leaves Postecoglous with Mackay, what if they don't get on and there's already friction within the team that's been created to take Celtic forward?
Yeah, obviously that is a worry, Stephen, but I think just to sort of I don't know if it'd be playing devil's advocate, like Lowell's technically still in charge. I appreciate he's leaving God knows when. It seems to be, the date seems to get changed all the time now. But so he should, I suppose, be the one, if you want to look at it in simple terms, he should be the one making these decisions. He should be the one getting the new manager and getting this. Well, I'm being in simple terms for trying to take Dominic Mackay out the picture there now as if he's not really there, because obviously, as it stands, Peter Lawwell still is the CEO. He's still the top dog, if you like. So he technically should be making these decisions, if you like, if you want to put it simple. But obviously, we've got Dominic Mackay coming in, and he's in inverted commas shadowing him, if you like. So, but I would like to think he is involved in this decision making. So it's a hard one, obviously, not knowing how it is. But I would like to think that Dominic Mackay is having a say in this. He's being involved in all the negotiating and discussions and stuff. But at the end of the day, like, as I say, go back to just being in simple terms and taking Dominic Mackay out of the equation. Like, Peter Law was the decision maker, if you like, as it stands. So should we really be surprised that he's making these decisions, or should we be surprised if it's his guy, it's his choice, and he might just go, well, I was in charge, I brought this guy in, we all knew I was leaving. You just deal with it, I feel like.
Yeah, but I mean, just to put Mackay in the picture here, just briefly, I was saying last night that the Celtic women's team qualified for the UEFA Champions League, which is a fantastic achievement by all accounts. And he put out a tweet or reply to the Celtic Football Club tweet saying, "Well done to the Celtic women for qualifying to the Champions League." And that tweet got bombarded. I mean, bombarded with comments. And that's the only really snippet of communication we've seen from Mackay since he's come in. But coming to yourself.
Sorry, when you go.
No, that's fine. What were you going to say, Francis?
That's what I was just trying to say. It was like, I know he will be involved, but I was just trying to put it in simple terms of saying, should we be surprised if it's Law that's making the decision, if he's just sitting going, right, well, this is still my ship, I'll decide. Yeah,
but I mean, John, what about if Mackay can see in his own mind that this ship's getting steered into a cliff and it's going to crash and burn? And I know what you're saying, Francis, but in my opinion, I mean, I have to disagree with you. If you're coming in shadowing the chief executive, knowing you're taking up that role, you should have a big enough pair of balls to say to him, look, I'm not happy with the direction you're going in here. Can we maybe work together and find a solution, John? And it doesn't seem like that's happening. This seems like the hallmarks of a Peter Lawwell appointment.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I would agree with that. I do, and I do understand what Franny was saying there about technically he is still the CEO and he will be until the 1st of July or whatever it is. Mackay doesn't officially start in his position until that date, so technically, the decisions are still Law's, but I would like to think that Law is looking at the fact that he's stepping down for that position and he's letting Mackay have a say, because this whole shadowing thing, he brought Mackay in purposely earlier than planned so that he could shadow him, so that handover was seamless, the transition was seamless, and you'd like to think then at some point they're actually asking Mackay, what's your opinion on this? Where do you see it? Because you're the guy that's going to be taking our control and you're the guy that's going to be like overseeing it going forward. If Law, despite the fact he knows he's stepping down, is just kind of ignoring anything Mackay's saying, still kind of like talking to Desmond and still making all the decisions despite the fact that he's not going to be here, and it's decisions that are ultimately going to impact us long term, I don't think that's right. And if that is the case, then again it just further shows the neglect in which the board are running the club at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you look at it as well, if I mean, he came in for that shadowing 3 months earlier than planned, and as
I
you
think that
said,
was to try and appease some of the fans about it.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, Francis, your man's on the payroll. He's not doing that for free, and
No.
And surely, as John said, after a month or two, you would expect Raul to turn around and go, look, what's your opinion? What direction? And we in the podcast, everyone knows who listens. We are the board's biggest critics. I mean, every week speaking about the board, and people may be fed up with it, but it can't be ignored. It just can't. And it's that attitude from the likes of Lawwell saying, as you said, well, this is my appointment. You kind of deal with it. That's not right, is it?
It's not right, but also to kind of sort of flip it, what's they say Tom Mackay isn't happy with all this. He could pick, this could be his guy.
But come on.
I doubt it. I doubt it. I know, I doubt it. But he could be sitting there going, well, I've done his background checks and stuff and going, I'm happy with this. And we just don't know, because it just comes back to the whole clarity for the board and what we get to hear or what we don't get to hear for them.
Well, that's it. And we've been screaming for that for months as clarity, and we've said it countless times, or lack thereof in this case. The board's failure to be clear and concise with fans throughout the course of the full season, especially in the postseason, their failure, their silence, the occasional wee statement they put out, and how unclear it is, how fucking murky it is. Like I say, it just leaves so much open to interpretation, and they're not doing themselves any favours, because if they wanted to put people at ease and they wanted to appease supporters, then just come out and be open, be clear. I would much prefer that. See, even if I didn't like it, see if somebody's open and honest with you, I'll take that any day. Or them coming out and hiding stuff and all that.
Sorry, John.
No, on you go for it.
See, even if they just come out, like, they don't need to say, like, just highlight what Dominic Mackay's been doing in the background, what involvement he's got. Just be things like that. I'm not expecting them to go, we're looking at this manager, that manager, we're looking at this play, that play. You didn't kind of air that kind of laundry, if you like. But just maybe tell us what Dominic Mackay has been doing for the last 3 months.
Well,
what influence has he got?
If we're led to believe he's been playing Fortnite with Diego Laxalt, we don't know there. But
I mean, I'm sure you are on the same boat, right? And I'm pretty sure Mace fans would be. You respect somebody a lot more if they're honest and open. If this board was to come out and just highlight what is Dominic Mackay's role at the minute when he's shadowing, is he having an input? Is he having a say, like you said, Franny, with the whole Eddie Howe collapse? What caused it? Just be open and honest. Be clear. See, even if you're at fault, if you've done something wrong and it's fell through because of certain things, and you hold your hands up, admit that you were wrong. Just fucking put it all out in the open, put all your cards out on the table, and they would get far more respect for fans for just being honest and open. But the fact that they're so silent, they're so they seem to just be what kind of like paper over cracks. They're hoping people don't like. We're no mugs. Do you know what I mean? The fans aren't stupid. We can clearly see something's not right. We know something's not right. We just want the board to come out and be open with the people that, in essence, pay their wages. Keep them in their fucking big mansions and all the rest of it. Like, just come out and be open and honest. That's all I want. And I would respect the board a hell of a lot more if they just were open and honest. Like, even if I didn't like the decisions they're making, you can touch on that further down the line, but at least they're coming out and they're being clear and open with the fans.
You can maybe also sense the direction they're going on and when they do that.
Exactly.
You might not agree with the direction, like you say, but
exactly.
Like, well, I can see a plan.
Yeah. And I think, as John said there, we can all agree with that. I mean, when we started this podcast, is the first thing we talked about. We just want the board to be open and honest. And it brings me on to the next thing in terms of Postecoglous coming in. I'm getting better with that name, by the way, folks, in case you haven't noticed.
I've tried to avoid saying it so far.
But right, it looks like he's going to be confirmed manager, right? And if we're led to believe he's coming in on Wednesday and he has to endure a 10-day period of isolation, obviously from COVID regulations and stuff. So that points to me, and we talked about this last week, and it seems more and more clear now that John Kennedy and Gavin Strachan will be there in some capacity at the start of the pre-season camp in Wales. Francis, how do you feel about that?
Brilliant, eh?
Imagine coming back and seeing them too. Imagine that.
I know. I mean, it's like you say, because of the delay and how long it's taken to recruit the manager, it's kind of came inevitable that Kennedy and Strachan were going to be there, because like there's never been any clear clarification what is actually happening to they two. I mean, we were all in agreement once Lennon left that they should have went with him. It's a team effort. I feel like, appreciate you could maybe take the playing staff into that, but that never happens at the end of the day. But so they clearly sort of overstayed their welcome, and the fact that they're still there, I honestly didn't get it. And if you're like turning up to pre-season and seeing Kennedy and Strachan there, you've got like some of the players must be like, "Oh, get me out here as quick as I can." There's like no reason. Like, there's no wonder like guys like Aya, Edward and stuff like that. No wonder they're sitting looking, going, "Well, this guy was rotten for 10 games. Get me away from here." But I suppose as well, what you could, if it is just pre-season, you're not really implementing. I appreciate, obviously, I've only played football at like an amateur Saturday and Sunday amateur level, but pre-season is pretty much fitness, really. So he's maybe not doing a lot of like sort of a coaching side, if you like, until our man Postecoglous comes in.
Postecoglous, yes.
And so maybe it's just they've got to be there for the fitness thing, and who knows, Gavin Strachan's laptop could get a wee app that can hook up their folks' fitness, you can actually see it. Maybe there'll be a use for it yet.
Well, I mean, there has been murmurs as well that if they kind of fit into his idea of playing, John, that they could stay on board as full-time members. And we did see that rumour floating about that we'll have to say former Rangers player among other clubs, but I mean, that was the biggest issue for some Celtic fans, that Kevin Muscat would be linked to assistant manager, John, and that was quickly squashed basically a couple of hours later. But I mean, getting links with them types of guys, I said it to you before we came on air, it kind of just shows me that I mean, there's better assistants out there, even if he takes his team from Yokohama or wherever he was at Melbourne or Australia, even though Muscat was a part of that. But I'm sure there's other coaches he could take with him, surely.
I'd imagine so. But if these are the guys, again, that he wants to bring in, then I'd say give him full autonomy, the staff he wants to bring in. I didn't have a problem with Roy Muscat coming in. He was only at Rangers for 1 year, right?
It's part of the ABT year, but
listen,
ABTs.
But see, that's his problem. But at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, he played 1 year, and
by all accounts, 20 games or something, I think, as well. It's hard
from what I'm led to believe, again, I don't know too much about him in terms of his coaching career, but for what I'm led to believe, what I've read and other things like that, he's a very experienced coach, and he does his job to a high standard as well. And I'm pretty sure that the fact that he played for Rangers and knew would be coaching, well, we know it's not happening, but just saying that, I'm sure that wouldn't bother him because he's a professional. So, and it wouldn't be the first time I've seen people cross that divide either. It's just sad, like that fans latch onto little things like that. But by the looks of it, that's not happening, and there is other options out there, and we should certainly be exploring them.
So I'm wondering if it, like the 40 Muscat was maybe, obviously did work with him, I think it was with the Australian national team, maybe because he played a season in Scotland. I appreciate, like, it was nearly 20 years ago, but maybe just thought it's a guy that knows the British game and stuff, because Muscat played a lot in England as well, so
yeah.
There's maybe a wee bit of thought in that.
Turn to, though. I mean,
I get that.
Rogic team, Scott McDonald, he can.
I was just meaning a staff point of view, that guys that he's worked with in the past, and then he's maybe looking at him going, well, he knows the British game, if you like.
See, to be fair, obviously not to dwell on Kevin Muscat, but just to put it in perspective, when he was manager of Melbourne Victory, he's won the same amount of A-League titles as Postecoglous did with Brisbane Roar. So there is obviously pedigree in terms of his management career. He managed for, I think it was 7 years in Melbourne Victory. But moving on from him, obviously we don't want to dwell on him too much. But how do you feel, John, about Kennedy and Strachan? Obviously we talked about this last week, but it seems obviously every day now it seems more clear. More press releases are saying that they're at least going to be there during the pre-season. How do you feel about that?
I know, man. You see when I read stuff like that, I just get a sore head. I'm sick to death of hearing about it. I'm sick to death of talking about it.
Well, we'll have to.
I know we have to, but I mean, fuck, like, why are they even still there? Like Franic said, they should. When Lennon left, they should have left. As far as I'm concerned, they were part of the problem. Since Kennedy's took over as interim manager, in fact, you can even call him interim at this point. He's been there damn near. He's had a longer interim position than most managers, than some managers, no most managers, than some managers have a permanent position.
Is he still in that position as we speak? Is that his title?
Well, I don't know. If you go by the bookies, he'll be classed as the manager, because the bookies class the manager after 10 games.
10 games.
Oh my God.
And that's how you're picking on managers these days with bookies.
Aye, and is Postecoglous going to be written down as Lennon's replacement or as Kennedy's replacement?
Well, that's actually a good question. Good
but
question.
I mean, in all seriousness, though, we've seen it since he took over. There's been nothing fresh implemented into the team. It's still been the same stale pish that we've been smelling for all season, and he's done nothing that warrants or would justify him remaining in a position like that going forward. If you want, like I say, we've touched on this and we have a laugh about it, and we've said like he maybe has him on someday of the board, and that's why they've kept him in the club so long. And the longer and longer he's kept there, the more and more likely that's. I'm starting to believe it. Like, it started off as a joke, but I genuinely think there's something in it, because there's no reason why this guy. I mean, he's been a great servant for Celtic, but like, if you're going to keep him there, just chuck him back into like youth coaching or something. Aye, send him away to help Franny at the women's team.
Well, Fran Alonso. I thought you meant Francis on it.
In fact, bring Fran Alonso up.
A lot of people have been saying that.
He's done a superb job, and congratulations to the Celtic women's team, by the way, because they've still got an opportunity to win the league as well. So,
I mean, John, in terms of Kennedy, like as you said,
I don't want him at the club. Plain and
right, no,
simple.
fair enough. I want both of your opinion, right? Again, congratulations to the Celtics women's team and Fran Alonso's a brilliant achievement. But looking at Kennedy, I want to be a wee bit not harsh on him, but I want to hone in on him here and talk about him a wee second. Do we think, come to yourself, Francis, first, he's being a bit of a coward, not leaving Celtic? Because it seems like to me, as John said, he's comfortable where he is because he knows he's not getting the boot, and that shouldn't be the case for anybody.
No, it certainly shouldn't. Not a club the size of Celtic either. You should always be worried about tomorrow, I feel like. But it does look comfy looking at him and the way he goes about in his manner and the touchline. That it just could be the type of guy he is. But to kind of sort of contradict when I sort of slated him a couple of minutes ago, I kind of agree with what Ross said. Like he was part of a successful Celtic under Rodgers and stuff, so there could be a place for him within the new coaching setup. But yeah, I would not be disappointed to see him go. I would be more happy to see him go than what I would be to see him hang about.
I don't think he should be there. If Celtic decide they're going to keep him at the club, then again, if it has to be in some sort of coaching capacity, but keep him away from the dugout. He doesn't need to be there. And
well, to be fair, he worked well under Rodgers, and by all accounts, Rodgers wanted to take him away to Leicester.
Well, then Rodgers can take him.
Well, he clearly didn't, because Kennedy said no.
But Strachan, though, why? There's no reason for him to be there at all. Like,
that's a friend sack, John. It's Gordon Strachan's connections with the board.
Exactly.
I think so.
Exactly. That's all that is.
Yeah, 100%. And as Francis rightly alluded to, like, could you imagine the players, right, when they walk in pre-season in Wales, nice and fresh, and bang their face with them too? And that brings me on to what the topic is next in terms of players like what moves away. And we're seeing Christopher Eyre before we move on to Eddie. He basically came out while he was on international duty with Norway, saying he wanted to leave last year, but the board said, look, stay for the 10, stay and help us win the 10, and then you can go this year. And he said basically along the lines of something's going to happen this summer, John, and you don't really blame him. I mean, the board made him a promise, and then it did come out in the Furness Faros game saying the players didn't want to be here, and we always thought that Eyre was one of them. Now that's been confirmed. What's your thoughts?
Well, I don't blame Eyre, really. Like I say, we started to see the rot set in before this season, and I think that the uncertainty with Rodgers leaving, the way Lennon was appointed, like I'll applaud Lennon for taking over for the rest of that season, but he should have went then. Once that season was done in Celtic, should have got the finger out and got a manager in. But that didn't happen. I think a lot of players' heads started to turn at that point, and as times went on, and we spoke about this the other week as well, it wouldn't surprise me at all if players are now going to their agents and saying, like, I want out, I want away from here. Because what you look at the club at the minute, and like I said before, it's a pantomime, it's a joke. And I hate saying it because, like, I love the club, but when you just need to look at it, it's absolutely laughable that a club our size or stature is being run the way it is. And again, you need to hold the board to account here, because a lot of the decisions they're making, or the lack of decisions they're making anyway, is causing these players to want to turn their heads and then say, I think it's time for me to move on.
Yeah, I mean, another glaring thing, Francis as well. Obviously, he did publicly say he wanted to leave before the 10 season, and Celtic could have cashed in around 15 to 18 million pounds. Now it looks like you'll be lucky to get 8 to 9 million pounds for him, with the likes of Norwich and all sniffing about. But that to me is a bad choice there, because if a player wants away, granted he's one of our star players, Francis, but again, if you're getting 15 to 18 million pounds, maybe 8 or 9 million would be reinvested back into the team. And I'm sure you could pick up another centre half. That is another bad bit of management by the board, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? What I would have liked Celtic to do is probably say, right, I know you want to leave, but we want to try and get the 10, we want to make history. Go and sign another year's deal, like on top it, so come this summer, it's a 2-year contract again, but just under the assumption to go, look, we will sell you next summer, but we want you to sign that extra year, so it gives us it kind of secures our asset, if you like, and you can maybe still command that 15 million, similar to what they should have done with Edward, who we may touch on later and stuff. But so I've not really, I would say it's bad business in the sense that not try to persuade them to sign another year's sort of extension. So when it comes to the now you can command a bigger figure. Because if you look, it happens all the time. Like I can remember Ronaldo before he left Man United. I think that's what happened to him. He wanted to leave and then they got asked. They gave them another year's contract, so you can still get top dollar for the following year. So I'd say it's more poor management in the sense of maybe not try to get them another year on their deal, but just tell them, look, I know I'm giving you another year, but it's not to keep you an extra year.
Yeah, I mean, what's your opinion on that, John? I think Francis brought up a good point there. I didn't really think of that.
I mean, yeah, it's one way of looking at it. I mean, it's definitely something that could have been explored, I suppose, but it wasn't, and we're in the position we're in. I think that Ayer said as well, although he did come out and say he's looking to leave. Like he says, there was no secret about it last year. He was told just to try and stay, win the 10, and then we'll see what we can do in the summer. So it's like we as fans can't be that surprised about it because we've been saying, like, it's been expected. We've been hoping that we got somebody in the door who could maybe convince him to stay. That doesn't look to be the case. But he has also turned around and says that he wants, while he's got the opportunity for Celtic to cash, he's a Celtic fan, and he wants them to try and recoup some money for him and cash in on him so that they've got the money there as well to rebuild. So, I mean, I don't hold anything against Ayer. I'd love to see him stay at the club. I think he's a great young player. He's potential captain material as well. And it's going to be sad to see him go because he's going to be hard to replace. But, like I said, I kind of expected it.
Yeah, he did make...
All right, no, it's just to say, like as much as I agree with you there, John, about Ayer and stuff like that, I think that was just a wee token statement to say that he's trying to get money for Celtic. I think that's trying to soften the blow of leaving and stuff. You hear that all the time from players.
But he didn't need to say it. Do you know what I mean?
No, he didn't need to say it, but I feel like it's a token statement.
But I think in the same breath as well, he's kind of making it clear there he's not going to sign a new contract, so it's either cash in, or lose me on a free. But he's came out and said it in a good way, which is good. I mean, he didn't have to, as John said, but he has publicly said he wants Celtic to get money for him. And another player linked away, who looks more likely to be leaving him. I mean, if thing related to believe that £15 million, £18 million fees been agreed with Leicester City, the club that seem to be pushing the hardest. Obviously, Rodgers has managed Edward before, but how are feelings on about Eddie leaving? I mean, it is to be expected.
Again, we knew this was coming.
No, but I mean, it is to be expected. But I mean, the fee is a bit laughable in my eyes. I mean, we could have cashed in again for 25 million last year if we had a smart head about us, but we didn't do that. Obviously, in hindsight,
no, we could have, and again, we didn't. And like I said, these performances this year hasn't warranted his price staying. The upper or around about the 20 mark, or above that. And like I says, we even Rodgers isn't stupid either. They know that these clubs can low ball us, so they do it all the time.
Yeah. And
if we lose him for 15, especially when you read, I don't even know what his contract is at this point. But you read all these different things. It's a 40% sell-on. It's 50% a profit sell-on clause and all the rest of it. And it's like at this point, if the most recent one I read was 50% any profit made goes to PSG, which means that we've made 3 million off him, and that's poor business, really poor business.
I mean, £3 million on the striker that cost us 9. It's
almost like you're as well as keeping them for a year, eh? Just losing 9 and just taking the 9, losing the 9 on them.
But as John said there, Francis, he was a player we've seen this season, he just regressed. I know he scored over 20 goals again, but he wasn't himself, wasn't he?
No, definitely wasn't himself. And I think a lot of that is maybe going down to last summer as well, that he was maybe promised something and then the board have not delivered on it. Like maybe he was what to leave and they weren't, and maybe got told, we'll get, because there was rumours, I can remember last at TalkSport, and there was rumours that he was meant to be getting offered a hefty contract. Don't know how true. Like they were talking everything between 30 to 50 grand a week. I mean, I doubt it'll go up to 50, and he was meant to get offered the number 7 jersey for a year just to try and keep him. And maybe he got all these promises and just it never materialised. And I think that could have maybe the reason why he played the way he did this season. But yeah, it's another one that's no real shock that he's away. And like John said, the figure was always going to be what it was because it's a year left in his contract. The guy's maybe not publicly said it, but it's well known that he wants away. So teams are going to come in with the low offers. But there was a wee bit of me hoping they might have stayed, but because he did actually put something on Instagram a couple of weeks ago saying he can't wait to see fans back to Parkhead, but then I don't know if that was maybe something to do with Eddie Howe coming in. Maybe he fancied working under Eddie Howe or something. But that's just it's one that was expected, and I think it'll be. Although this season it didn't look like he really turned up, even I think it was his best goal scoring return anyway. But I think we just need to be grateful that the last few years we've had him and Dembele up front. It's been a nice period for us.
We've seen the likes of obviously Kieran Tierney move down to the Premier League, and obviously he started slow due to injuries, but he's kind of been one of Arsenal's better players this season. He's took it by the scruff of the neck as we expected him to, and Edward has that potential, and we all know he does. And we've seen the goal he scored when we were down to 10 men at Ibrox, the penalty kick he scored against Craig Gordon for a hissy fit. But John, coming to yourself, do you think Edward has the potential to go on to play for the biggest clubs in the world and light up the Premier League and other leagues like the La Liga, Bundesliga, wherever he ends up after that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we like you said, you all know what he's capable of. You've seen his exploits as well for the French team as well. I mean, he is, let's not kid ourselves on, he is a world-class striker. He's got all the makings of a world-class striker. And if he can go, he gets his move, then I'm pretty sure he's going to do big things.
What about yourself, Francis?
So I think Leicester is an absolute great move from knows if that's the deal that goes through. He knows Rodgers. Rodgers knows him, so he'll know what Rodgers expects of him and stuff, and Rodgers will know what to get for him. So it's a move that makes sense. And then Leicester are obviously they're up in there, thereabouts to get in the top 4 of the Premiership. So I can't see anything going wrong with the deal for him, and then it gives him that potential to move further up, maybe to a Liverpool or something, or even a Man United, because they two teams I think in the next 2-3 years will be looking for a striker.
Well, I mean, Cavani's agent, isn't he? He's like 33. Yeah. And obviously Firmino and stuff, he's going to be leaving pretty soon in Anfield. But I mean, looking at players leaving, well, let's touch upon quickly players who could potentially come in. Or I mean, if there's anyone in the panel that has a preference of a player, maybe a left back that they want to come in again. But we've seen the lone players like Laxalt, Elyounoussi, Duffy, who's the other one? Kenny.
Oh, you're man.
I mean, I nearly fell asleep saying his name. But John, coming to yourself, you did come into the group with a kind of left field suggesting, I want you to come out to the podcast and say it. Who would you like to see back, or Celtic take the gamble on, as you said?
John, go and wait that out on my mic, because I'm going.
No, I know exactly what you're getting at, and I'm going to come to it.
Okay.
Because I personally think that it's worth it. So I would like to see Elyounoussi back. I've always rated Elyounoussi, like I said, if we can get a decent deal for him, then absolutely. We know what he's capable of. We know he can score goals. We know we need a left-sided player as well. And this brings me to the other point, right? And this is I go
2 seconds to mute my mic because I'm going to laugh the whole time.
Very good. You can laugh the whole time, but I want you to honestly, Franny, and I'm putting you on the spot. Right. I want you to come back to me, right? And you give me a valid. And
I'm ready.
I want I genuinely want a valid and like a reasonable response for you. Then I just laugh. Like,
I don't know.
Tell me why I'm wrong or why it's such a bad idea, right? But basically, for the folk that's listening, I said in our group chat, right? I'd read that, and this is regarding Diego Laxalt, all right? I'd read that AC Milan would be willing to offload Laxalt for $4 million. And then I presented the thought to our group chat, and I says, "What do you guys think about Laxalt for $4 million? Because it is significantly cut price on the deal or the money that AC Milan paid for him, and what he's generally regarded or what his value is." So I presented that question, and I got laughed at, plain and simple. Now I'm going to put this to, and even anybody that's listening, like I want valid, like give me a well thought out. Didn't just say because he's shite, because that's the worst possible comeback ever. I want a thought out response. It's not. Because you need to be able to back it up. You can't just say shite. The entire team's been shite, right? You've got a case then.
We're not talking about the whole team.
Let me finish.
You can't just bring everybody else into the argument here, John.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
You want Laxalt or everybody?
No, listen. You can't say you didn't want a player there because they were shite, because in that case you don't want any of that first 11 there, because
but I've not picked,
by and large all this season they've been shite.
You're picking up Laxalt.
Let me finish, Franny.
Just stick with him.
Let him finish.
I'm going to Laxalt, but I'm making my point, right?
There you go, pal.
And this is what you guys that were jumping on my back weren't getting. So I said that Laxalt for 4 million, although a gamble, could potentially be worth it because, and I'm going to outline the reasons why, right? We've seen glimpses in Laxalt of what he is capable of. The management this season, or rather mismanagement of players this season, has seen all players' performances drop across the board. Now, bear in mind, this is a guy who's come in, English isn't his first language, and has come into a poor setup, a poorly run club, coach club this season, and is being expected to hit the ground running because Celtic fans demand the absolute best, which they should. But we've seen glimpses, like I says, of what he's capable of now. This is a guy who only a couple of years ago was a Uruguayan internationalist under 20s and was winning awards for one of the best players at the tournament. This is a guy who is playing international football for the actual full Uruguayan team and scoring goals as well at international level. This is a guy who was picked up by Inter Milan, went out on loan to clubs like Empoli, Genoa, and managed to win himself a move through his loan move with Genoa, I believe it was, to AC Milan for 18 million with add-ons. And then he came to us. Now, that he has all the makings, I think, of a player who's capable, right? He can play left back, he can play left mid. That's what he claims his position is anyway. His natural position is on the left side of midfield. We've been screaming and greeting for another left-sided player. Now, I personally, and I want you to come back to me, Franny and Stephen, even, and anybody else who's listening and wants to get involved.
Even I'm an afterthought, John.
No, but I want you to come back and tell me why you feel and validate it. Like, I want proper, like, if we're going to have a discussion about it, I want a decent response. I don't just want to hear that shite because that's the worst possible response. But so you've got a player. He's young, he's fast. We've seen glimpses of what he's capable of. He's highly rated international. Big clubs, AC Milan, Inter Milan, have seen enough in him. He's done well in the Italian league, and like I says, he plays positions where we are not exactly got much depth and that we need strengthening in. Now, 4 million for that is potentially a gamble, but ultimately it's no a huge gamble because if he comes in, he underperforms, you've got options then, right? Depending on how long his contract is, you can get him out on loan. You could potentially recoup that 4 million or more off the back of him, right? Or he comes in, he's got the right manager sort of guiding him, the right coaching team. He's not on loan, so he can put his feet, he can plant his feet, he can keep his head up. You can guide him, you can mould him, coach him well, and then you've potentially got a player who's back up to the 18 million mark. So you tell me.
You want to answer first?
I want a valid and thought out answer or reasoning why you think that's so laughable.
Right. Well, for a kick-off, 28 is not young in football, so he's not young. The guy has had, no, by all accounts, he's had international football, but 24 caps in 5 years. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. The guy has played 172 games in 9 years.
Have you seen who? Just to come back to you on that, right?
Oh, sorry, I thought I was giving my points to argue.
No, you're giving your points, but have you seen the position players he's fighting for at international level?
Well, John, we're just you're telling me I'm just giving you points here. Why I think
Francis give history.
You're saying he's an international, but he's not. He's played 24 international games, which is a lot to be fair, but it's not a lot in 5 years. He's played 172 games in 9 years, which averages at 19 games a season. That's not a lot of games, John. That's not regular. And he played 0 games for Inter Milan. 0. He played.
Well, because they immediately put him out on loan.
That's how much they thought of him. They brought him out.
But that was back in 2013, Franny. He was a project player. We do it all the time.
I know, but you can't. Inter Milan signed him, but he never kicked the ball for them. And then, like, I tried to back him up in the past. But you can't turn around and say after that season that he justifies an outlay 4 million. You can't be taking punts. We can't be taking punts next season on guys like Laxalt at 4 million and potentially turn good, because it's all fine and well saying, oh, what if he comes and it doesn't work out? We'll send him in loan. But if we send him in loan, he's shite. What if he does what Bolingoli does and plays like 4 games?
And what if he does the opposite?
If he kind of just, that's not a valid argument, John. What if he does the opposite?
But it is though, because what my point is that 4 million in this day and age isn't a lot of money.
No, it isn't Scotland.
I'll give my wee bit of point there.
Can I just say something? Like,
go ahead.
Would you say he's twice the player? Like, we signed Greg Taylor for 2 million. Is he twice the player Greg Taylor is?
No.
Exactly.
I don't rate Greg Taylor either.
Let me give my point. Right? Let me give my point here, because I think you're saying 4 million isn't a massive punt. I mean, I don't believe Celtic's transfer budget can afford to take a 4 million chunk for one player. I don't think it's that big for this rebuild. And touching upon what Francis was trying to say, that 28 is not young. By all accounts, his best spell in his career was with the Italian club Girona over a 3-year period where he had a good couple of appearances. And funny enough, he played with Oliver Nisham at Girona at that time, and we were pretty successful together. But he came in, and yes, John, you're right. When he first came in, we raved about him. He looked like he was quality. He had the highest record for the most tackles in a European game. But again, you could argue how crap were we with our left back, had the bails out time and time again. Then he started to regress into the crap that was seen that all players did give, I have to admit. I mean, it was bad coaching. I'm a big Barkas fan. I believe that's where he's fell down. My argument for Laxalt not coming back to Celtic is more the fact that £4 million is not a gamble. It's a big outlay for a Scottish club, regardless of stature or worldwide appeal. I get what you're saying in terms of his European pedigree. He was in the World Cup Team of the Year in 2018, and you have to be a quality player to get in that. But sometimes I see these foreign players come into Scotland and they don't make it. I mean, you could cite the likes of Janino, but you could cite the likes of Janino in that argument. He came in Brazilian international. He had one good game, and that was it. He went in the same game with the Celtic shirt, and that for me is where Laxalt should stay in the European game, where he's best suited, not the Scottish game.
Yeah,
right.
Is that all you want to say?
Well, I mean, like I said, you're entitled to an opinion, same as I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
And by the way, can I just outline 28 in football is still a good age, and most players tend to be in that round about their prime, round about that age, as well. So let's know. If I say he's still a young guy, 20, I'm fucking.
Aye, he's young to us.
Aye, he's young to me. And like I say, he's still in terms of football, he's still in his prime. He's still at his peak. So, and like I say, 4 million is a gamble. I'm not going to dispute that.
Every signing is a gamble.
Every signing is a gamble.
Regardless if I just think, looking at, and like I said, I've tried in the past. I can remember when the Derby games I called for him to play, and he had the worst 45 minutes I think I've ever seen a footballer. But I just think what we're potentially going to be going through next season, I think 4 million's a lot to be putting out for a guy that has not justified that.
Yeah, that's. I think
well,
that's fair.
Disagree.
Yeah, that's fair. And we'll move on gracefully to the next point, and that point is what was seen. I mean, we heard that Neil Lennon was signing with a new PR firm to improve his his image. Well, I don't know where that came from. I just seen a midgie or something that said midgie, but improve his image in regards to the football world. His first interview done with the Times. I mean, that kind of threw pan in the face of any image he's trying to improve. And basically, I'm not going to go through the whole article, but he said that there's a new breed of Celtic fans that he has no connection with. He also said we had an unhealthy obsession with the 10, but again, he was doing the 10 fingers to the fans weighing 8 in a row season. And the board were marketing the whole 10 thing, be a part of the 10. That's how they got their season tickets sold out in allocation. He also said that, what was it? That there's a new breed he had no connection with. It wasn't a joyful time to be a Celtic manager, which I find, I mean, that's mad, because he should be privileged to be Celtic manager at any time in the world or any time in his life. That shouldn't be any question to be a joy for anybody who supports Celtic or supposed to support Celtic to manage Celtic. And I'll come to yourself, John. How did you feel with the whole Danny comments? He didn't do himself any favours there, really, did he?
No, that's exactly what I said. He's done himself no favours. Listen, I love Lennon as a player in his first stint as a manager. I can't speak highly enough of him. Everything he went through as a manager, the stuff and the shite he had to put up with as a manager, nobody should ever have to put up with, but he done it. And then when we needed him most, when Rodgers left, he stepped up again. But I stand by that. At the end of that, it should have been thank you, shake his hand, let him go. For him to come out, like you says, and then say that essentially still try to absolve himself of any blame this year whatsoever, rather than just hold his hands up and say, look, it didn't work. Apologise for it, just say sorry. he's still pointing the finger. He's still blaming certain elements of the fans for it. I think he touched on as well the after, and this is another comment that really baffled me, because he implied after that Scottish Cup run ended, I know the fans were angry. Some of the fans acted absolutely disgustingly by attacking the bus and throwing stuff and all that. We don't condone that at all, and that's a very, very small minority. But he tarred them with the same brush. He says Celtic fans should have been celebrating it. We were. I don't think he understands this. We just won a quadruple treble. Like, we couldn't celebrate it enough. And I think we've all said the same thing. The result against getting knocked out of the cup against Ross County was a terrible result.
Bottom we don't condone. Well.
Aye. We don't condone what happened outside Celtic Park that night either. Were we upset at losing? Absolutely. Were we sad that cup run came to an end? Absolutely. Were we still happy that we managed to win 4 on the trot? Absolutely. It was celebrated. It still is. We still talk about it in high regard. We still see it as an incredible achievement that will never be bested. And let's be honest, it won't. We've set a record that will probably never be broken. And for him to come out then and point the finger at fans and say, much like the board have previously, you're entitled. You're obsessed with the 10. Again, we just done 9 in a row for the second time. Your own course and in the best position possible to go and set another record, to break another record and win 10. Fans, of course, or any fan at any club that coming up on a record like that is going to be excited for it, obsessed with it. We all were. Any fan would have done the exact same. So to use that as a negative and try and spin that as a negative, like, an unhealthy obsession with the 10, shut up. And the fact that he's still pointing the finger at fans without, he can't hold it, like I said earlier on about the board, just hold your hands up, be honest, be open, admit you made a mistake, admit it wasn't working, and I'll respect you for it. So, but it's tarnished his reputation for me, because I expect better from him. I expect more from him. I think his career at Celtic has been fantastic, and he'll still be held in high regard for that. But he certainly, as far as I'm concerned, I've lost a bit of respect from him after the comments. But I will say this in his defence, and I might get a lot of flack for this, but I really don't give a fuck. There is an element of Celtic fans, and I've seen them, and these are probably more the younger generation, because they've grew up with nothing but success through Celtic. They've not seen what a lot of us seen, like in the 90s and everything else, and watching Rangers go through their 9 in a row and having to deal with that. But they are a different kind. That they are. I wouldn't say they're a different type of Celtic fan, because they're accustomed to success and they don't know any different. But some of the comments I've seen online for some Celtic fans are absolutely disgusting as well, and they need to take a hard look at themselves.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, I kind of get where you're coming from in terms of the kind of new generation of Celtic fans obviously being accustomed to success. And me, myself, personally, the first ever game
I just want to back this point up as well, though. There is a new generation of Celtic fans coming through, right? That are accustomed to that success. No, it does. And they know nothing but success. And that's fine. Like, it happens. Every generation is going to be different. But for Lennon to say he felt out of touch with the fans and all that, that's bullshit. What he should have done was just come out and say, I should have left at Christmas. I should have left. I should have walked away, let the club appoint somebody, try and salvage what was left of the season, hold his hands up and say, it wasn't working for me, and apologise and let go.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he comes out, he points the finger, he still calls certain element of Celtic fans obsessed. Well, pretty much all he is. Points the finger at Celtic fans, refuses to take any blame whatsoever, and then it comes out and says it wasn't enjoyable. But then why the fuck did you stay?
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that really stuck out in the article was he kind of praised the board again, which again goes against the grain. And coming to yourself, Francis, John, you made some fantastic points, and the last one there in particular, it's a bit counterproductive that he's trying to improve the image of himself, of his new PR company, and he's coming out slating the club's fans who he used to manage and the club he proclaims to support. He's putting them down in that sort of way. Another thing that I found laughable was he kind of alluded to the backroom staff, saying he was kind of stuck with them. And But obviously, he knew the conditions coming into that job, and he still took it. I mean, if he was man enough to come out and say that, surely he was man enough at the time to say, "Look, I'll bring my own guys in. It worked better last time." But he didn't. He took the job on them conditions. It's kind of the man who cried wolf, isn't it? Really, that he's going back and all these saying, "Oh, this is why we weren't successful." Maybe these are all the mitigating factors that we've been waiting on, eh? And he's been saying, "Look, you don't know what's happening behind the scenes," and he's come out and saying all this crap, like out of touch with the fans who adore him and worship the ground he walks on. Me myself, as an Irishman, Neil Lennon's all I can really remember growing up in the Celtic team. Him, Petrov, Lambert, McNamara, Larson, Hartson, Sutton. That's the team I grew up with, and when I first seen Celtic and fell in love with them, watching them with my granda. And him to come out and say, just attack the fans, like it's nothing. And this is a club that's given jobs, given countless opportunities, brung him in and all sorts of capacities. Much like John Kennedy, starting off as a coach, maybe not quite as successful as a manager, obviously not. And then Neil Lennon taking the reins the first time, coming in the second time, and then to do this, Francis, has he lost a bit of respect in your eyes? Obviously, he's still a club legend, as John alluded to. His success is, you can't really deny that, but his comments were very, very silly, weren't they?
Oh, they were silly, and I think in maybe the weeks and months, maybe I'll pass him. I'm hoping he kind of regrets it to an extent, because there were silly comments. Like, I echo what John, like, the guy will always be a legend in my eyes, just simply for what he got put through, what he put himself through, and it didn't alter his decision making and taking over Celtic or being at Celtic, and that it gave no second thought to the abuse that he would potentially receive again when he came back second time round. But it was a strange statement to, like, it was sort of I don't know, like, him and the Celtic fans this season kind of weren't singing for the same hymn sheet. There was disagreements, and this whole statement's not really helped it. Like the one, like you said, with the backroom staff, maybe, like, obviously got his own backroom staff the first time, but you can't agree to the backrooms. Don't sell your soul to the devil, then moan about it. You can't, you can't agree to the terms, then moan about it. Appreciate that could and quite possibly could be a mitigating factor of why it didn't work. But like you said, you agreed to the terms, and like John said it as well, like, come out and admit your fault. Well, I say come out. It's probably hard to come out and admit your faults, especially on being a Celtic man. He knows he failed and stuff. He failed at getting the 10, the biggest.
Sorry, Francis, just to come out to there. Sorry, I'm going to let you obviously finish your point, but you said there that it would be hard for him. But if he signed this thing with a PR company, surely come out and taking some of the blame. No, I agree. Puts him in better stead going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. He should have, but also I think he's obviously a proud man. He's a winner, and it could be hard to admit that you got it wrong. It could be a wee bit hard, I think, and I hope maybe in years to come that he probably will be able to find it for himself and just say, look, we got it wrong and stuff. But yeah, it's just like you said as well, like the whole unhealthy obsession. Like, after we secured the 8 and the 9, he was talking about it. He wanted to do it. He's and stuff, and like to say, like, the new breed and the unhealthy obsession. There's nothing wrong with being an unhealthy obsession if you like to get success. Like, I think any profession, if you want to achieve anything or like get to the top of any profession, but especially football, you probably have to have an unhealthy obsession to it and an unhealthy dedication where you maybe put certain things like family, other things, work and stuff. You put things aside because your main focus is on that end goal, maybe the 10. So it's to call it an unhealthy obsession, to want history, to want unrivaled success. I found that a strange comment, because I think to an extent you could argue you need an unhealthy obsession to achieve that. And then to constantly just blame everybody else, and then he brings up, oh, it wasn't so long ago I was getting lauded for the Lazio game and stuff, but then he fails to acknowledge Ferencvaros and the 2 Sparta Prague games. You're like, you can't take all the plaudits and not expect folk to come back at you. If you're going to start bringing up games, folk are going to then come back at you and go, well, look at these most recent ones then.
Exactly.
It's just, but I mean, I've always loved the guy and stuff. It's just, it was like you said, I think it was a silly statement. I think it's a silly statement.
It was. And see off topic. Well, I'm excited to see Scott Brown and the Euro panelist. He's going to be up with Roy Keane. That'll be sick. But again, like I don't mean to go off topic. It just came into my head. I don't know why, but I wanted to say it. Any final word, guys, on the Lennon interview? Are you happy enough to move on?
I'm happy.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure we both made our points.
Yeah, and another, just to touch upon it quickly, was saying that the majority shareholder at Celtic, Dermot Desmond, finally came out of his shell to do an interview with an Irish journalist. And in this interview, the Irish journalist was trying to probe him, to ask him questions about the Celtic and about Celtic's rebuild and what's going to happen in the future. Dermot Desmond refused, but then he gave the man a quiz. I don't know if you've seen much of this.
I saw it, aye.
Yeah, he basically gave him 3 questions, and he got them all wrong. And Dermot Desmond said, "Look, you don't know lots about Celtic or something, so you're not really in a position to talk about them. So I'm not going to talk about them to you." Now, for me, that's fun. It is kind of funny. Fair enough, he done that, but it's not the right time again. He should be given information on what the direction is. John, surely. What was your take on that situation?
Yeah, no, I thought the whole asking the boy questions about Celtic was quite funny. But I mean, this is the guy who is a majority shareholder in one of the biggest clubs, and he doesn't do the whole media thing when he really fucking should, because the fans deserve to hear for the guy who has the majority shares in the club. But again, he would much rather be fucking silent, and he's continued that. He had an opportunity to come out and just have a chat with somebody. He didn't have to answer all the questions. He could request certain questions maybe not be asked. He could request certain questions maybe not even be printed. But he should have still had that conversation and still answered some of the questions that I'm no doubt that this journalist would have been a lot of questions that have been on fans' minds as well. But again, it just smacks you didn't want to answer them because you've either not got an answer or you just don't care enough, and that's what it screams to me. And the fact that he's had an opportunity to do that, he's had an opportunity to come out and speak to the fans through this journalist, answer some questions, let us know sort of where he is, where the club is, and everything else, and refuse to do it again just shows how far detached he is for the club and its fan base, and just further cements the fact that he needs to leave.
Yeah, and again, Francis, as you say, you don't really know about it. Basically, what John said there's quite a summary, but I'll give you the gist of it. He had an interview with an Irish journalist, obviously over here. I think it was round about his businesses, maybe horses and stuff in between. But the Irish journalist wanted to probe him about Celtic, and it came to a head when Dermot Desmond kind of gave him 3 questions. One was about when did Desmond take first control of majority shareholding of Celtic? He got that wrong.
He was only a year out, by the way.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
he said 93 when it was 94.
Yeah, and to be fair, John did sum it up in regards to what he should have done. Do you think he should have just kind of parked that and answered at least a few questions for the fans?
Yeah, it's like you said, it is maybe a wee funny thing to do, but it goes back to the whole read the room as well, doesn't it? Yeah. Give them a wee bit, just give them a wee bit something. And like John touched on, like Dermot Desmond, like these type of guys don't just give interviews willy-nilly, so they've been set questions the guy was allowed to ask anyway, so there was probably a couple ones in there within Celtic that he could have asked. And like I've not got a great problem with my owner not being in not coming out speaking and stuff. Obviously, if he's given an interview, like we used to say over in Ireland there, I would hope to maybe hear something about Celtic in it, and especially under the circumstances what we're in the now. It looks like we have now secured the manager and stuff, but there's other things like obviously the rebuilding and obviously backroom staff, if you like, and director of football heads recruitment. So I would have liked to maybe hear something on that, but to kind of sort of argue against it, I wouldn't say Dermot Desmond doesn't care about Celtic. Like, he didn't become a billionaire and be not caring and stuff. And
he didn't become a billionaire through Celtic though.
No, but like
it seems like
he's not lost his billions at it. So it's just I don't think
it's because he won't fucking spend any of it.
That's true.
Well, he has in the past, to be fair. Like, he brought in Rodgers, Strachan, O'Neill. He's spent money. Like, he has done it. He's just maybe not done it as much as we would like him to do.
I think, to be fair, what John was saying, he hasn't really. I think it's last count 11 years since he last dipped his hand in his own pocket for Celtic.
I'm led to believe that he brought in. It was him that was kind of Rodgers and Robbie. I don't know how long ago Robbie Keane was, but I think he brought in Robbie Keane as well.
he pressed the button, but again, it's club finances covering that. I mean, they made 100 million that year, so.
Right. Well, fair enough. But,
But what I will say is, and again, this is going back to you, Franny. He was asked, and he specifically said before he did the quiz, "I don't want to talk about Celtic."
I agree. Like,
you're the majority shareholder of this club.
I don't want to talk about obviously, it. I'm not looking for my owner to come out and be doing interviews every sort of 6-8 weeks. Like, I would rather not.
He never does it.
No, that's what I mean. Well, I have absolutely zero care about him ever doing it. But if you're putting yourself in that position, maybe give us something. Tell us something.
Yeah.
Because to kind of I'm the one my own. Like, you never hear Abramovich or the Glazers or like Sheikh Mansour at Man City coming out. Like, nobody really cares about what their owners have got to say. Let's be honest.
I think
that's true.
I know. I think under this, like, he's obviously put. That's what I'm trying to say. He's put himself in an interview situation. He's put himself up. So I don't think it's wrong for us to expect something in this interview. But in the main, I have no issue with my owner being silent, because how many owners around the world at clubs do you hear being very vocal?
Good ones.
Name me two. Exactly.
Right. You two pick the bus.
Know other names. Who's the boy for? Leicester.
They never come out and say anything. They've
got a better relationship with the fans than our
they've got a good relationship, but they're never doing interviews, are they?
This is the thing, though, Franny. See, this season, the off seasons, you've got a guy.
That's what I'm saying. He should have.
Everything's in turmoil, right? The place is a mess. He's got an opportunity to answer some questions.
Yes, and I said he should have.
Point blank refused to do it.
I said they should have. I did say he should have, but I'm
in the main.
Well, my main point is I'm not interested in my owners doing interviews. But if you're putting yourself in that position, maybe give us something.
So you don't want to hear for the majority shareholder of the club?
You just listen to what I say and take what you want for it. Just make up what I say, then.
Right. Take the pass and goes on.
That's literally what you said, though.
No, I just mean, in the main, I don't care if I hear from owner at all. But if you're putting yourself in an interview, I want to hear something.
Right. We get the points. We all believe that he should have said something. I mean, what we did learn during the podcast, that Dermot Desmond is John's trigger word. Holy shit. You completely anger and boiling off the man. But that brings us to the end of the show, end of the podcast, guys. I have to thank you again. I'm going to give you a bit of good news here. It might be good news, but for me, I had no time to organise a quiz, so there's no quiz this week. Okay.
But the Mayweather and Logan Paul fight.
But what I will say to the people who are listening, this week we are going to do our very first Scotty's extravaganza for the European Championship campaign. What we're going to do in that is going to be all members of the End of Celts podcast, hopefully. I explained this before, I'm an Irishman, but the rest are Scotties, and they're all excited at the prospect of covering Scotland, as am I. So in that their segment, we'll cover Scottish memories, favourite Scottish games, favourite Scottish legends, the reaction to the Euro squad, what we think the predicted lineup should be for the first game, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a fun-packed show with plenty of laughs. And we also have come up on the podcast channel our interview with the youngest ever Celtic goal scorer, Jack Aitchison. That'll be available very soon, so look out for that. And to my co-host John and to our show regular Francis, have you enjoyed this one, guys?
It's good,
yeah, no worries, guys. And until everyone who's listening, as you always say to us, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.